Somebody give me a thumbs up.
Well, I can see your screen. It just says Zoom.
Okay, great. That's what
Okay.
I need to know. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's just look at some of these metrics in these charts. If you'll look at this, you'll notice that Hungary, and now this is increases over what they bought last year. Hungary has bought over 15.2 metric tons more this year than they did last year. Look at the United States, 8,133 metric tons along this year. If you come down here, we have a chart that shows you by the country how many tons they have bought in the top 10. That's amazing. They're buying gold like there's no tomorrow. What do they know that we don't know? Here's the reason that banks, central banks, buy gold and silver. It's to further diversify themselves away from the US dollar and the dollar dominant assets. They're starting to separate themselves from the American dollar. Again, what do they know that we don't know? Now, I've been teaching this ever since we started this Zoom meeting and even before we had these Zoom meetings. Fiat currency, which is what the dollar bill is, has a 100% failure rate. 100%. Throughout over 6,000 years of recorded history, it has never been successful. But yet gold and silver has never, ever failed. Even before recorded history, when archaeologists dig up people in eras of human history before there was a written language, they always know who the royalty was, or the chieftains, or the leaders were, or the wealthy were, because the bodies would be adorned with precious metals of silver and gold. So it is truly God's money. It was created by Him. I watched a young lady in the video I may have. Let's see if I can find it real quick. No, I didn't. It's actually, I posted it. If you will go back, there's a lady on Telegram that I posted it. Let me go to it here. This lady right here.
You're good, Lola.
Those, I post those for a reason. We need to watch these. One of these people that I posted made this statement. He said the best way to understand the relationship between fiat currency and gold and silver is this. Imagine that you have a bathtub and you fill that bathtub full of water. Water represents fiat currency or the dollar bill. Around the edge of the bathtub, you place gold and silver on the top ledge. Then you pull the plug. As you lose currency, gold and silver does not move. It is stable. It remains where it's at. It will never change. And what drives that is this. She doesn't say this, but I'm telling you what drives it is that it takes the same amount of labor to get it out of the ground today as it did 6,000 years ago. That hasn't changed. So that's what gives it its inherent value. It's precious, it's rare, and the amount of labor it takes to remove it from the ground has not changed. Okay. So that is what makes it so stable. I also believe that it is divinely anointed because God mentions it 365 times in the Bible, and it's first mentioned in the river, being placed in the river Pishon in the Garden of Eden by him, and it was blessed by him. So again, I go to my faith also prove that gold and silver will always have value. Okay. Now, this gentleman right here on this video, he talks about preparing for the avalanche. Now, here's some things that we need to know. And he talks about these. If you will listen to this man and spend every penny of disposable income you have between now and the end of 2026, you will be sitting extremely pretty. See, our incoming president has already had a sit-down meeting with the Fed and the Secretary of Finance for the United States. And he's just set down his expectations. Now, he is not going to remove the people that's there because they agreed to do what he was wanting them to do. He basically went in there with an ultimatum. He said, this is what we're going to do, or else I can replace you with somebody that is going to do it. And they agreed to do it. Now, what is the thing that they're going to do? The thing they're going to do is that they're not going to mess with the interest rates for right now. And if they do, it's going to only be slightly. Now, what effect is that going to do on the U.S. economy? Well, it's going to do two things. But the second thing is the reason that he's letting it do that. It is going to drive inflation up. For the first 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency, we will see inflation rates rise. Now, why does he do that? That is the way that the machine is designed to pay off national debt. So at that point, it's going to start lowering the national debt. Once we get the national debt under control, then they will lower the interest rates and the machine will start running again. But it's like a 2-year reset cycle that we have to go through. Now, why is that so important for us? When that inflation rate goes up, what happens to the price of gold and silver? It skyrockets. It goes up, right? So if you can get in now and buy as much as you can before it gets to that point that it goes to skyrocketing, then there's going to be millionaires made in this country. So watch this man's video that I posted for y'all, study it in detail, take notes, and understand what he is saying. Okay? That's why I posted that one. Now, this one right here, let's watch just a little bit of this one together. And then I'm going to go to 2 of Josh Anderson's trainings that we have in our back office, and we're going to break those down also. All right? So anybody have any questions so far at this point before I play this video? Okay, so we're all good. People taking notes. Well, not playing for me. Let's see if it does it that way. There we go.
Rude to make additional income do you own? Which will protect your wealth? It's a simple question, but before I answer it, I ask you a question. Why are you buying it? This is because gold and silver will reveal exactly how gold and silver function in different scenarios, particularly the one that, in my opinion, we're heading for, which is inflation, followed by hyperinflation, and ultimately a currency reset. But that's a lot to take in. So before we talk about a currency reset, let's start with the rules. You can make the best decision for your financial future. And do not skip this foundational part, as it is crucial to understanding what I'm going to talk about. Now, most people have heard of up until the late 1800s, the United States was actually on a bimetallic standard, a gold standard and a silver standard living in unison. The silver to gold ratio was set at about 15 to 1, as silver was the common daily choice of money for most, and gold was reserved for rare, larger purchases. But large discoveries of silver caused surpluses, driving the price down and destabilizing currencies that were tied to it. This is when more countries began to adopt the gold standard exclusively, because gold was scarcer and therefore its value was consistent. This is something that was really cemented in 1873 when the United States passed the Coinage Act, which essentially demonetized silver. This increased silver volatility in a way that we still see today. In fact, about half of silver's demand comes from industrial and monetary is part.
Now, that part right there is extremely key. So if you would, you might want to make a note about the duality of silver. That duality is one of the things that is going to drive the value of silver up in the coming years. Okay? Because silver is used in so many industrial applications. Debbie and I was talking about that just before the call. She and I had a little conversation. And I mean, you can't even drink a bottle of water today without the use of silver because it's purified with silver. If you wear a wristwatch, an electronic wristwatch, it has silver in it. If you have a cell phone, full of it. Your phone is full of it. Your automobile is full of it. Solar cells are full of it. They all require massive amounts of silver just to the fact that they are extremely high conductors of electricity. They can conduct low voltage electricity without hardly any loss or propagation. Okay. So that is key. And I'm glad that she brought up the industrial use of it. That is going to be the thing in the next 5 to 10 years that will skyrocket the price of silver. Because remember, she said there was a boom, and because there was an abundance of it, it caused the price to go down, the law of supply and demand. But however, the demand is going to start exceeding the supply in a few short years, just due to the volume of silver that we're starting to use in everything. Back in the era that they discovered all that stuff, they didn't have these electronics that we have in our modern world. So there was very little use for silver other than like in silverware, jewelry, or money. They didn't have any industrial uses for it. Industrial uses for silver are fairly new. We're looking at the last 3 to 5 decades. Okay, so we're not talking about very much time.
Why we see, or someone says, no, there's someone out there leaving more is worth both of you, or the dollar is value, the dollar much should own gold, and which one will protect your wealth. If you are an investment, the big injustice.
You get that? A lot of people, and I've seen a lot of people come and go to 7K just in the short 7 years that I've been in it, that expect to get rich quick. They think it's some kind of short-term investment they can turn a lot of money on. Gold and silver is not that. It is a legacy wealth protection tool is what it is.
Just a second, we are going to look at a gold to silver ratio, the relationship between the spot price of silver and gold, or of silver. And this is because gold has always going back to the Romans, where this was set. I'm going to go back that far. We're going to look at the gold to silver relationship. And as we look to the future, that you will notice that it's almost like we're looking at two different charts compared. Well, something happened. Silver's value. Now, what is 1971? You might know the answer already if you said you would be correct. Once that happened, you are right. You see, 1 ounce of gold goes up. It's because the handcuffs were off. As they started creating more units of currency, what happened? Well, there was tremendous inflation in the 1970s, right? So we see that right here. And over time, we see this just kind of continue to rise up. Now, why would that be? Well, again, as the value of your dollar loses its purchasing power, the value of gold is worth more. Now, this is a pattern we see across countries throughout history, where during times where the currency is being devalued, both gold and silver's value will rise. But inevitably, what will happen is gold's value will rise higher in relation to silver. Now, why is this? It's because, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, they have different functions. Silver's primary function during these periods of time is interchangeability, while gold's primary function is wealth protection. But don't take my word for it. Look at what happened to Weimar Germany in 1918 compared that in 1918.
Now, watch this very close. There is one story that I heard about this particular era to where a man had showed up in front of a bakery with a wheelbarrow full of fiat currency to buy bread. He went into the bakery to see if there was bread available. When he came back out, someone had poured the money out on the ground and stole the wheelbarrow. It was worth more than the paper. We're headed there.
You could buy one loaf of bread for 1 German mark and 200 billion German mark. I mean, a pack of gum isn't $1 anymore, $3 today. But imagine 5 years from now, $100 billion. Now, what would happen if you owned still looking at German marks? Well, in 1980, 5 years later, when the German mark was worth essentially nothing, 1 ounce of silver could buy you 2.5 loaves of bread. So silver, people who held silver were able to still use it for their everyday purchases. But what if you held gold, an ounce of gold? Well, an ounce of gold in 1918 in Weimar Germany was already worth more, but by the end, 5 years later in 1923, this would buy you, oh yes, silver was important for your daily purchases, but imagine holding gold. Because on the other end, not only did you maintain your wealth, but you set yourself up for future opportunities. Imagine if you had the foresight to hold gold before that happened, the opportunities that you'd have to buy property, to purchase businesses. You would protect not only your wealth, but future generations' wealth to come. But that's just one example. Look at more recent examples like Brazil, Argentina, Zimbabwe. The same pattern repeats itself again and again, which is that as the fiat currency collapses from government overspending, silver and gold are important to hold because silver is used for daily purchases, but gold jumps higher and higher in relation to silver because it is a true wealth protection, true money. And I always say to people, silver and gold move together until they don't. But again, don't just take my word, those in power are doing. If we look at central banks, what are they buying record quantities of? They're buying gold. Why? Well, the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, has labeled gold as a tier 1 asset, basically as high as it can go. And why are banks buying this as much as they can? Because there's no counterparty risk. It is stable. It has proven the test of time going back as far.
Did you catch that statement? There is no counterparty risk. That means zero. There's no way you can ever lose buying gold. Now, if you're a gambling person, that's what is referred to as betting on a sure thing right there. Okay.
As we have records of, as true money. Therefore, banks understand that as this currency devaluation continues and the inevitable currency reset happens, gold is going to be what we are going to use to regain our purchasing power. They know that. And that's why when we own a piece of, not to say for those out there saying, well, important to own both in my have different functions, but I am concerned about a currency. Why? Why are you preparing? What are you overspending, devaluing potentially a central bank digital currency? Worry you about your finances and your wealth in currency resets and using that as a blueprint for moving forward. But this is
all right. So we'll stop that one right about there because she's an investment advisor and she's going to go talking about some stocks or some futures in gold and silver, which is not what we do. We deal with physical assets. But all of this shouldn't be new to our members. We should have heard this before. And this is great stuff to go over. All right. Now, I am going to go to here. And let me make sure that I'm on the right one. The first thing I want to do is play 1.2 of Josh Anderson. This is in our back office. Everyone that are members of 7K has this training. This is part of our wealth strategies training. And I want you to listen to the parallels that he is drawing. We're going to listen to 1.2 and we're going to listen to 1.4. I'm going to skip over the 1.3, which is the discussion about the Bretton Woods Accord, to where the world decided after World War II that they were going to get together. I'm sorry, after World War I, get together and establish all currency worldwide on the American dollar, because at that time it was backed by gold and silver. Okay. So that duality system that they talked about. But let's first listen to this one and see if we hear some parallels to what Josh is going to have to tell us.
In this section, we're going to take a look at the first category of buyers, a hedge against poor government decisions and economic collapse. We don't have to look too far in the past to see what happens when governments take advantage of the financial sector. We only have to look at countries like Zimbabwe or as recently as Venezuela to see how a currency can go from $2 or $3 to zero in a matter of days. We don't have to look very far to understand hyperinflation. We know what it looks like. And we want to take a few minutes today and share with you some video clips where other experts in the world can share with you reasons why you may fall into this category of a hedge against poor government decisions and economic collapse. For those able to see the cliff edge.
Did you hear that? When he says that they bought their self time to wring the last few dollars out of a dying system, do you know where those last few dollars are coming from that they're wringing out of there? Our pockets. Not theirs, ours. Because fiat currency allows the government to control you, not you control the government. So listen closely and take notes on this.
Approaching time. And in the end, that time may prove to be the most valuable commodity of all.
There are these brief moments in history where the safe haven asset for the last 5,000 years simultaneously becomes the asset class that has the greatest single potential gains in purchasing power. We're in one of these cycles right now where money is the best investment. Get out of currency, buy money, and you're probably going to be able to buy a whole lot more stuff later.
Did you hear that? He distinguishes very clearly there the difference between currency and money. What is money? Money is gold and silver. Currency is fiat. It is paper. It is a promise from the government. That's all it is. Okay?
But the best thing that people can do of all is really this is the most important thing. Don't let the banks and the brokerage houses and other people guide all of your decisions. Find out what's going on for yourself, empower yourself.
Man, I could not give better advice right there. That was astounding. You heard what he said? How many people have you talked to that says, well, I invest in the stock market? Well, they've got brokers. And what is he telling you? Don't let those people make decisions for you. Educate yourself. Make your own decisions, because whose best interest do they have in mind? Not yours. Promise you that. It's their bottom line. It's their pay scale that they have. And here's another thing about that. They are in a no risk job. If they lose, the only thing they've lost is a slight percentage on a large base of commission earnings that they get. So basically, it's nothing invested out of their pocket. It's only a deviation in their salary as to where you are the investor and they are using your money. So put a lot of thought into that stuff.
We absolutely love what was shared there. To take responsibility for their financial was built out in such a way. What it really did was give time to better our financial future with sound money, not currency. We can't wait to share the difference with you about the two. There's a major difference between currency and real sound money. And we are in a pivotal moment in history where the actual currency of the world that will protect us the very best is actually real sound money, gold and silver. In this section,
All right. So let's go to the next one. And we want to hear what he says in 1.4.
let's take a moment and look at how you can control your money. Even though the US dollar is no longer backed by gold and silver, how can you take control?
The government has decided paper, so I would say it's the government and Wall Street. Gold in the hands of people is the way you control government. Governments cannot create money out of thin air. If it's gold, they can only create paper out of thin air.
Did y'all hear that? Does that sound familiar? What did I just tell you?
If they can create paper out of thin air, they can use that paper to wage wars, or they can use that paper as a political contrivance to enrich their friends. And as a consequence, governments have been fighting gold all century long.
Did you understand that? Governments have been fighting gold for the last century. Why? Because gold's in the hands of people, the actual citizens, is real power, unmanipulatable. Governments can print as much money as they want, and as was shared, share it with their friends, taking the control away from you. So what's the solution? Gold back in your hands. Let's take a look at how gold is financial insurance. We understand that we buy homeowners insurance or automobile insurance to protect us against a catastrophe. Let's take a look at how experts view gold as a financial vehicle to be insurance for our entire lives.
Gold is financial insurance. And the thing about it is you own it because you want to be protected. And, you just have to have it if you want to have or sleep at night, because there's nothing else. If some catastrophic event happens, and we've seen them, how you can be protected.
That statement right there, if you want to sleep at night, you've got to have it. And then he qualifies that with, there is nothing else. There's no other substitute. Gold and silver, that's it. There is no other substitute that will hold its value. All right, so let's reduce that. And let me get back to my notes down here to make sure that I'm on schedule there. Okay, I think we are there. I will stop the recording, and then we're going to have a Q&A section. But one thing I really want to do tonight is I want to stress, especially to the people on this call, you're wanting to learn, and that's a wonderful thing. People that are educated in gold and silver and take control of their own destiny are leaders. You may not feel like a leader, you may not look like a leader, but you are. Trust me, people are watching you and what you do. So tonight, what I'm trying to do and what I'm wanting to instill in you is those leadership qualities to do the right thing. Lead by example. People will follow. Okay? You don't see yourself as a leader, but you will be. And that's what we want to do. We want to build leaders in this industry, not only for the industry itself, but also for your friends and your family and how this can enrich them and bless them. Because if you really care about people, you will tell them about this. Because we're coming very close to a time that fiat dollar is going to collapse. Okay. The predictions are all over the place, but the best I can say is soon. There's some that say by the third quarter of next year. There's some that say before that. There's some that say 2026. But that fiat dollar is going to collapse. It's going to go through a reset. You did not hear one single one of these experts tonight. And what did we listen to? At least maybe 5 of them. Every single one of them are saying exactly the same thing. It is going to collapse. And the examples were given. All right. So with that said, I am going to stop my recording on this end and get myself enlarged here again and stop the sharing.